Oh, thank God. So, there you have it. She runs. For those of you that have been following along, you know the process of how we've gotten here. But for those of you that are just catching up, go back and watch the previous videos. This thing has been a royal pain. I'm this excited to get this out of my driveway, take it back to the yard, and start working on other things. I've said that a million times. But what I want to do today is go through the process. And if any of you out there are struggling with getting one of these 7.3s running, boy, we've gone through pretty much everything that can go wrong. Not really, but fuel delivery wise, I've been through it all, troubleshooting everything that I can. So at this point, yes, it runs. However, I do in fact still have an issue, and it's really no surprise. It all makes sense, but we'll get there. For now, I want to take you in chronological order since the last video on what I've corrected, what I've troubleshooted, and just take you through really where and how we got here. Interesting enough, the issue that was keeping this truck from running, I actually glossed over in one of my earlier ideas of what my problem was. And I thought that the part was fine. However, it was not. So if you have an idea of what I glossed over, feel free to drop it in the comments and see if you're right by the end of the video. So for the time being, sit back. We're going to go in chronological order of my process here, and let's see what actually went wrong. All right, first thing I'm going to check is the fuel bowl where the filter is. I'm going to start this up, see how it's running, and I want to check. I'll pull the cap off and see if it's starving for fuel, see kind of where the fuel level is in there. So I'm going to start actually with starting it up so the bowl is full, get a reading on where that is, pop the cover off, get a reading on where that is, start it up again and let it die, and before the fuel pump kicks back on, check what the fuel level is. That's my plan for now. All right, shut it off, and I'm gonna see where that fuel level is in the bowl here. Okay, let's check our level. I don't know, there's good pressure in here, and it was spewing out when I opened this up. Yeah, I don't think that's our issue. That looks exactly the same. Further investigation. And we're back. Here's what I'm thinking. I did some digging. I think the fuel pump is good. However, I was perusing online and just looking at, what the common sensors and causes and yada, yada, yada are. And here's what I found. I'm not sure if this is gonna be my answer or not. Oh, first of all, step stool. Thank you to one of my most faithful subscribers, Jared, for giving me that step stool. No more standing on 5-gallon buckets. Here's what I'm thinking. This sensor right here, it's called the electronic brake pressure sensor. Hello?
Hello?
Electronic brake pressure sensor. Basically, that sensor is prone for failure. It also has a tube that attaches to it that runs down to right on the exhaust manifold. See a little nub right there? There's supposed to be a tube there. So prone for failure, usually they get sooted up from all the diesel, and they cut this one off. So not sure about all that. So we're gonna swap that out and see if that's our issue. So it's my understanding that the 7.3 Powerstroke has this sensor, and the 94 through 98, I want to say, basically the previous model, the one prior to this one, more boxy style, you're okay to eliminate that sensor in that age range. However, the 99 and up 7.3s, supposedly you can't eliminate that sensor. So we're gonna cross our fingers and hope that that's our deal here. Swap that out. I'll show you, this is the little piece of tube here that we're gonna replace. That's the one that typically gets all sooted up, but they just decided to hack it off. So we'll replace this. Hopefully this fits up well, and then replace the sensor and start her up. All right, there we go. Okay, there's that sensor. And now this is attached to a tab that's also attached to that tube. So there should be a locking nut down there on that tube that I can also get to, and then I'll have to wrench that tube off. Definitely a steady as she goes type of process, but not a complicated one by any means. Just with this clutch fan in the way, it's a little bit slow go, that's all. Okay, so
here's the earth.
Here's my old one, obviously hacked off right there. Here's the new one. This is from China.
China.
China, 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 China,
China. China. China.
My sensor, I obviously just to follow suit, I got a Motocraft part, but I went cheapo on the tube itself. Hopefully it fits up decent enough. I got to get the bottom half of this one off though, so let's get down and look at that. Get you in here as best as you could see, but it's pretty tight. So I'm gonna get some PB Blaster on that as much as I can. That's gonna be a toughie, I'm sure. Somehow, I have a sneaky suspicion that this thing is never coming loose. But, by golly, am I gonna try. Let's take it to the vise. Talk about a dirty job down there. Golly. All right, so heat, schmutz. Oop, it might just be going. Oh yeah, she's going. Key is now what I'm doing is working it back and forth just because I really don't want to break this and wait for the part. Yeah, I think I got it. Got it. Threads actually really don't look that bad. All right, success.
Great success.
Update, after a long, hard fought battle, I am victorious. But took me a minute. Pro tip down here, start with this one, because where you're attaching to is solid and it ain't moving. So get that one on first and then come up top, because this tab has some bend to it and you have lots of room down here to play with. So start down low and then this one threads on pretty easy. So I'm gonna tighten that up, get my sensor in here. That's all that just drops right down into that hole right there. And we'll be good to start this thing up, see if it goes. All right, now to be clear, I don't have a whole lot of faith, but it is something that I want to roll out. So let's see if the sensor was the answer. Obviously, I took a little bit of a break because I wanted to. If you haven't seen that break, I played around with an excavator for the day. That was fun. Click the info card box if you haven't seen that. It was a video before this one. I was waiting on parts, to be honest, because I wanted to test my injectors. I had my mechanic that works at the place I work at stop by. And put his nice snap-on computer on the truck just to give me a little clue, a little better thinking as to what's going on with this thing. And he's saying from what he can see, he did a buzz test and then read some codes, and from what he can see, the driver's side bank is the one that's screwing up. So I caved and bought new valve cover gaskets, mainly because they came with this nice little pigtail. And I can strip these wires, plug this in, and ohm out my injectors, see if those are off or if they're coming up correct. Gray wires are your glow plugs. Multicolored wires, red, yellow, blue, are your injectors, and black is your ground. So we'll plug this thing in and see what we're reading. All right, ground out my fancy little Harbor Freight box here. Turn it to horseshoe mode. I'm just gonna go 200 because I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. And let's see what we get. And I'm getting 3.8. Go for yellow, 3.6. The other red, 3.7. And blue, 3.7. Okay, so my audio cut out here, but basically all I'm saying in reference to the previous clip is my injector wiring, resistance-wise, is out of spec. It is close, but it's anywhere from 1.5 to 3.5 ohms, and I'm getting pretty consistently 3.8, 3.7. So I know I gotta go in there. I have the parts to replace it, so I'm gonna replace the valve cover harness itself, and then also the pigtails themselves. You'll see in the upcoming clip that my wires are frayed and they're in poor shape, so gonna get to replacing those next. So I was in here rooting around and I found this. Zoom. See those wires? That is no good. Problem with this, obviously, lack of insulation. This will arc out onto my valve cover or anything else and cause problems. So I'm gonna install my new pigtails, and while I'm in here, I'm gonna replace the gasket, and that should solve my resistance problem. So here's what we're dealing with now. I got this all soldered up. If you know, Pallies, what this is, let me know in the comments. It looks like a wire with no insulation on it, but on both sides it was just kind of wrapped around everything in the tubing here. So I'm not sure
what the purpose of that is, or what it is, if it's a wire, or if it's just meant to hold everything together. Not too sure, but let me know if you know. Had a couple nicks here, so I insulated those, and then I have all these soldered up and insulated together. And this will click in, obviously, right here. So I'm gonna get all this wrapped back up and insulated again to prevent fraying, and then we'll piece this thing back together and see if it'll start up.
Well, unfortunately, it looks like I'm about to lose my weather. Starting to spit, and it's supposed to keep going, but say a prayer, it passes by. Dear Lord, baby Jesus.
Your golden fleece diapers with your tiny little fat balled up fist pawing.
He was a man. He had a beard.
Yeah, at this point, I'm really struggling. Mentally, physically, emotionally, I'm struggling here. It's one of those moments where you sit down and you think to yourself, why? Why do I do this to myself? Should I just take it into the shop? Should I continue on and try and figure it out? Tough spot to be in. But really at this point, I was done recording the process because I was just, a lot of footage going into things that weren't helping the situation, and I didn't want to drag this video on, make another video of me replacing parts with no solution, blah, blah, blah. So at this point, I stopped recording and I just really dug into, all right, let's figure this thing out, and here we are now. So at this point, I am thinking to myself, it's got to be more so computer related, because I'm checking everything up in the engine bay, and I can't find what's going on. So the truck was throwing a couple codes that were alluding to a memory server error or something like that. So my first thought was IDM, which is the injector driver module. This controls your injectors along with other things, but I don't know how many pins are in there, but it's a hefty little box of electronics. Unfortunately, there really isn't a good way to test these, so my first thought was to at least test the wires that run from A to B, that go all the way through the truck from the injectors to the module. And in order to do that, you come up to your driver's side wheel well, peel this down, and your module is right up here. So it's a 10 millimeter that holds it, and you pull down your pigtail. This pigtail, if you pull out your multimeter, you can ohm out your wiring just like I did with the pigtails up top, and you can check if they are within spec. Get yourself a chart online. Looks like this. This is a chart of your pigtail and what each pin is for. Follow the instructions on the sheet. Basically what you're doing is you're going to take your multimeter, switch it to the horseshoe mode, and just follow along with the chart. So here it is. We're going to put our ground cable on pin 24, which will be the passenger side injectors. It says right here. And then there are 4 pins for each injector on each side, so there's 8 total pins. So we'll go 24, which is this guy, and pin 20, which is going to be injector number 7. Okay, and that's what I'm getting, 3.1, 3.0, 3.1. that is within spec. That's what you want to see. And that's pretty standard with what I was getting on all of my injectors. So this is a good way to do this, just jot them down. You want to see, with your injector resistance, you want to see anywhere from 1.5 ohms to 3.5 ohms. That is within spec. So you can confidently say, okay, my wiring from my injector module all the way through the truck to the injector itself is within spec. So you should be good on wiring. So again, here I am telling myself, shoot, you know, I'm within spec. You know, what else could possibly be wrong? And like I said, there's really no good way of testing the module itself. So find yourself a buddy that has a Powerstroke that's running. And these are really easy parts to get to. This IDM, you just, like I said, peel down your fender well and it's right there. It takes 20 minutes to get this thing in and out. This is actually the guy that was helping me out. He has one of his personal trucks is a 7.3. So I pulled this out of it. It's just sitting at the shop with the axle out of it right now, so it's not going anywhere. So he was kind enough to let me swap out modules to see if it was the module itself. Again, unfortunately for me, it was not. So I still don't have my answer. So here we go again, back to square one. And next computer to check is the PCM, Powertrain Control Module. This one for me was a shot in the dark, but again, it's an easy part to get to. It takes less time than the IDM to get out, 5 minutes in and out. So this was the next part that I rob, and boy is this one in much better condition than mine. A lot cleaner. But it's right here, tucked away in the corner. Again, 2 bolts to zip it out, and you unplug it from the engine bay. 10 millimeter in the engine bay, you unplug your pigtail, and you swap it out real quick. Just a quick check. And again, not my issue. So, okay, at least I know at this point it's not computer related, it's not a wiring issue. Let's get back to the basics. It's either going to be fuel pump or injectors. And I already checked my fuel pump, but let's check it again. Now, keep in mind, I don't have a lot of experience with these trucks, with the 7.3 in general. This is my first 7.3 that I've owned, and I should have known, and for those of you that have had these trucks before and have worked on them, you probably know the high pressure filter canister where the fuel pumps into and then feeds your injectors. Here I am, a noob.
What a noob.
And I pop off the cap earlier on in this video, and I'm like, okay, you know, there's pressure on here, and I see bubbles coming through with the fuel pump on. My fuel pump's good. I think the fuel pump is good. Wrong. My fuel pump was on its last legs, so that's why it was running for a few seconds and then would die. It's because the fuel pump couldn't keep up. So I check again, and I don't have any fuel pumping in at all. So I go down, I check my terminals on my fuel pump. I have 12 volts to it with the truck on. Replace the fuel pump, fired right up. You want to see when you take your fuel filter cap off and you're checking your fuel pump. I don't have a way of testing pressure, but I'm sure you can look up the spec on how much pressure you should have coming in, but it should be flowing, like quickly flowing. So drain out your bowl. There's a little tab on the back that you could drain the bowl and refill it with the fuel pump. Turn your key, watch the fuel flow in. If it's really pumping, you're probably good. If it's just trickling in like it was for me, no good. So there you go. I replaced the fuel pump. She runs. However, I do still have an issue with this truck.
What is it?
What is it?
What is the issue, you ask? Well, when my mechanic came over and was reading codes for me, even though the buzz test sounded okay, I've got 2 dead holes in my driver's side bank. So that would explain the rough idling, the struggling on cold starts, things of that nature. I got to replace or rebuild. I think I'm probably just going to opt for rebuilding them in a future video and no time soon, because right now all I care about is it's running, it's operational. I'm going to button this up, get it out of here so I can move on to future projects. Hallelujah. So there you have it, 7.3 Powerstroke. There's all your issues, basically, all your troubleshooting. Don't be fooled by your fuel pump. Check the pressure, make sure it's actually pumping fuel. Even more baseline than that, make sure you have fuel in your tank. Keep it basic and then move into the more computer-related issues. But she runs. I hope this helped somebody out there that's having the same problems that I was, because I could tell you, she was a doozy. I'm glad to be done with it for now. But like I said, in a future video, we'll rebuild those injectors, hopefully get it firing on all 8. And then this thing will be really cooking. You know what I mean? So, for all of you out there that are debating and struggling on taking this to the shop, just keep in mind, even a newbie can do it. I'm a prime example of that. Just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of frustration and a little bit of throwing wrenches across your yard. So with that, I will see you all in the next video. If you like the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We've got tons of things coming down the pipeline, starting with this guy. Going to start getting to work on that. This little tool right here, which you'll see what that is later. That Jag we got to work on, this Mercury, there's plenty to do. So with that, don't be afraid to grab that wrench and get after it. I will see you all on the next video.